Formula One commentator Will Buxton just called George Russell entitled, and he backed it up with receipts. The Mercedes driver made comments last year that have come back to haunt him. Russell told The Athletic that if his time in Formula One had come 5 years earlier, he could argue he'd have 2 championships by now. The logic is that he outperformed Lewis Hamilton in 2 of the 3 years they were teammates. So if he'd been at Mercedes during the glory days of the late 2000s, he would have beaten Hamilton and won titles. Now those comments have resurfaced. And Formula One commentator Will Buxton absolutely tore Russell apart on the Up to Speed podcast. I saw a quote out of him today saying that if I'd got to Formula One 5 years earlier, I'd probably have a couple of championships by now, and I fear a level of entitlement there, Buxton said. Entitlement. That's the accusation. Not just confidence, not just ambition. Entitlement. The belief that championships should have been his in a timeline that never existed. And Buxton didn't stop at the accusation. He went further. He systematically dismantled Russell's entire fantasy, piece by piece, until nothing was left. The breakdown was devastating. Buxton traced Russell's hypothetical career path through 2014, examining every available seat, every realistic opportunity, every possible championship. And the conclusion was brutal. George Russell wouldn't have won 2 championships if he'd started 5 years earlier. According to Buxton's analysis, he would have been lucky to stay in Formula One at all. Let's talk about what Russell actually said, why Buxton called it entitled, and whether the Mercedes drivers' championship dreams are slipping away to Kimi Antonelli. George Russell entered the 2026 Formula One season as the title favourite. He'd proven himself against Lewis Hamilton. He delivered consistent performances. Mercedes had the fastest car on the grid. Everything was set up for Russell to finally win his first championship. Then, Kimi Antonelli happened. The Italian rookie has won 3 consecutive Grand Prix victories. He's overtaken Russell in the championship betting odds. And suddenly, Russell's championship opportunity is being stolen by his own teammate. If you want to stay updated on whether George Russell can beat Kimi Antonelli for the championship, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This title fight is just getting started. That's when Russell's old comments resurfaced. In an interview with The Athletic last year, Russell reflected on his time as Hamilton's teammate and made a bold claim. There was once a time that if you finished ahead of Lewis Hamilton in a championship or in a race, you'd win the race. Or if you'd finish ahead of the championship, you'd win the championship, Russell said. If my time was 5 years prior, you could argue I'd have 2 championships in my name. The context matters. Russell outperformed Hamilton in the 2022 and 2024 seasons. He beat the 7-time world champion in qualifying and race finishes. So his logic was simple. If he'd been Hamilton's teammate during Mercedes' dominant years from 2014 to 2020, when beating Hamilton meant winning championships, Russell would already have titles. On paper, it's not completely insane. Russell did beat Hamilton twice, but Will Buxton saw something else in those comments, something darker. I fear a level of entitlement there that he thinks it should naturally be his, or he is starting to feel that maybe Kimi has come in and overtaken him in pure performance. So there's that frustration in him of, I should already have been the champ, Buxton explained. There's the accusation. Russell isn't just reflecting on hypothetical scenarios. He genuinely believes he deserves championships that never happened. And now that Kimi Antonelli is beating him in 2026, that frustration is showing. Co-host Naomi Schiff warned that the comments might come back to bite him on the arse. And then Buxton did something devastating. He actually played out Russell's hypothetical scenario, step by step, year by year, and it completely falls apart. Russell's fantasy assumes he would have joined Mercedes 5 years earlier than he actually did. He joined Mercedes in 2022. 5 years earlier would be 2017. But actually getting to Mercedes requires a pathway, and Buxton traced exactly what that pathway would have looked like. If he had arrived in F1 in 2014, he wouldn't have got a seat at Williams like he did in 2019, because they had Felipe Massa and Valtteri Bottas, and George isn't outperforming either one of them, Buxton said. Williams was Russell's actual entry point to Formula One in 2019, but in 2014, Williams had Massa and Bottas. Both were established, high-quality drivers. Russell wouldn't have gotten that seat. So, where would he have gone? Buxton continued breaking it down, which leaves probably a seat at Marussia or Caterham. Marussia or Caterham, the backmarker teams, the teams that eventually went bankrupt and disappeared from Formula One. But even those seats weren't available. He wouldn't have got the seat at Marussia because that was Jules Bianchi, who was a Ferrari junior. Alexander Rossi was waiting in the wings for the other seat, Max Chilton was paying for that, and I don't think George had Max Chilton's money. Brutal. Marussia had Bianchi, a Ferrari Academy driver who would have taken priority. The other seat went to Chilton, a pay driver who brought sponsorship money. Russell didn't have that kind of backing. That leaves Caterham, the worst team on the grid. Which puts him in a Caterham, so he probably gets half a season, if that. Half a season. At Caterham, that's Russell's realistic 2014 scenario. Not Mercedes, not championships. Caterham fighting just to finish races before the team collapsed. But even if Russell somehow survived at Caterham, he still wouldn't have reached Mercedes during the glory years. He's definitely not gliding into a Mercedes seat at that time, because you're not beating Hamilton at his peak, or Nico Rosberg. Hamilton at his peak, Rosberg at his peak. Mercedes wasn't looking for young British talent in 2014 to 2016. They had two championship-caliber drivers fighting each other for titles. There was no seat available. And even if there was, Mercedes wasn't hiring rookies from Caterham. So where do Russell's two championships come from? Buxton asked the question directly. So, a couple of championships from where? Not Formula One. Russell wouldn't have been in a competitive car. So maybe another series? Buxton addressed that too. Because he wouldn't have won them in Formula E, because Sébastien Buemi would have absolutely destroyed him, and Jean-Éric Vergne would have destroyed him at their peak. Formula E had champions in those years. Buemi and Vergne were dominating. Russell wouldn't have beaten them. So he gets what? Lucky if he gets an L, MP2 title, maybe a couple of GT titles. LMP2, GT championships, not Formula One World Championships, not the titles Russell was implying he would have won. Buxton's final assessment was devastating. I just don't like that level of entitlement. Entitlement, the idea that Russell believes championships should have been his, despite no realistic pathway to actually achieving them. The belief that beating an older Hamilton in 2022 and 2024 means he would have beaten peak Hamilton in 2014 to 2016. And the timing of these comments resurfacing makes it even worse. Russell entered 2026 as the favourite. Mercedes has the fastest car. He should be leading the championship. Instead, Kimi Antonelli has won 3 consecutive races. The 20-year-old Italian rookie is beating Russell. And instead of focusing on the current fight, Russell's past comments make him look like someone who thinks titles should just fall into his lap. Naomi Schiff's warning is proving accurate. The comments are coming back to bite him. Because now, every time Antonelli beats Russell, people will remember that Russell thought he deserved championships that never happened. Russell's actual career path worked. He joined Williams in 2019, proved himself over 3 years, earned the Mercedes seat in 2022, outperformed Hamilton twice, and put himself in position to win a championship in 2026. But that's not enough for Russell, apparently. He wants credit for hypothetical championships in an alternate timeline where everything broke perfectly for him. Except Buxton just proved that timeline doesn't exist. If Russell had started 5 years earlier, he would have been at Caterham, not Mercedes. Fighting for survival, not championships. Maybe scraping together an LMP2 title if he was lucky. The fantasy falls apart under any scrutiny. And the fact that Russell made these comments while losing to his teammate makes it look like sour grapes. Will Buxton doesn't pull punches often. But when he called out Russell's entitlement, he backed it up with a systematic breakdown of why the hypothetical doesn't work. George Russell has a chance to win a real championship right now in 2026. Mercedes has the car. He has the talent. But Kimi Antonelli is faster. And instead of focusing on beating the rookie, Russell is complaining about championships. He never had a realistic chance of winning 5 years ago. The entitlement is showing. And it's not a good look. Buxton destroyed Russell's argument step by step, seat by seat, championship by championship. And the conclusion is simple. George Russell wouldn't have won 2 championships if he'd started 5 years earlier. He would have been lucky to stay in Formula One at all.